Hi, and welcome to another inspiring artist worth studying. Today I'm going to be talking about Charles Dana Gibson. Hi, my name is Luis Escobar. I'm a storyboard artist on the Simpsons television show. I've been working on the show for over 25 years now, and I'm here to empower you. So, Charles Dana Gibson is somebody who I started, you become aware of him mostly because his work is public domain and he's used in clip art books all over the place. But his work is amazing. His penmanship is amazing. So here's the thing, and here's the reason why you ought to study Charles Dana Gibson, and that is his penmanship, his way of drawing women. So if you're really into beautiful pen and ink work, I spoke about Bernie Wrightson in a previous video, who's got these amazing rendered pen and ink, like, dip pen drawings. Charles Dana Gibson is in the same, well, he's older. He's years before Wrightson. But that's where Wrightson got his idea. This tradition of pen and ink that Wrightson was emulating comes from people like Charles Dana Gibson, and so using his work is really great. I was, like I said in a previous video, I was trying to learn to do this kind of very calligraphic, very beautiful, rendered pen and ink style. And I had to look really hard. I'm going to be talking about another artist soon that was another inspiration for that kind of method. But Charles Dana Gibson, one of the things that really made me want to study his work the most is that he draws beautiful ladies, and it's the way that he inks them that was inspiring, because when you ink a pretty lady, the more line work you do, the older they become. If you over render their face, they look terrible. But here's the thing, Charles Dana Gibson would render on the face, and they would put lines all over the face, and their faces, and still have very pretty ladies. So let's take a look at what he did and how he did it, and why it's worth taking a look at how he renders and does pen and ink work. So here we have, like I said, a rendering of a very pretty lady. His style is, like I said, you've probably seen his work because it's in clip art everywhere. So look at this beautiful face. Look how much line work on this face, and yet she still looks very pretty. I would be afraid to put any kind of line work on a face because of what I've said before, of making some, like a pretty lady like this look old. But somehow he manages to keep a very youthful looking face through by in spite of the fact that he's got so much line work on here. So let's take a look at the line work here and why the line work. And this is kind of the important part. First, let's notice that the lines are extremely fine, right? So he doesn't blotch in the lines too much. But here we have he puts in the lines in the face that describe the planes of the head, the planes of those muscle masses coming in straight, and so what he's basically doing is showing you here's a plane coming this way, here's a front plane, here's a side plane coming slightly away from us. Same here. Here are the planes of the face. Here's another plane, and then this was going away from us. Here, these lines here, interestingly enough, he doesn't wrap around the eyeball. These lines here are just tonal lines. They're just there to make the white of the eyes a gray tone rather than pure white. All of this area here is in light. He keeps it completely white. He doesn't touch it. But then here are very, very specific. There's a cast shadow here, and then he just keeps it all in the same direction here. Here, this line here. Here, this line is describing the side plane of the nose. Then here, what we have is he's wrapping around. There's like, even if you look at me in this light, you can see that there's a cut right there, like a side plane light shadow there. So that's what this is. This is that same kind of cut of light of shadow coming in here, and then he wraps very finely. He doesn't go too far. There's only like two lines, maybe a line and a half here, but he finally wraps around this bottom part of the chin here, and then he wraps the lines around the neck, making it, explaining the roundness. So it's all of this stuff is not only accurate and explanatory as far as the facial planes, but it's also very very fine, very deliberate, not too much. It's just right. No over rendering. Here we have it's even more pronounced. There's more to it. There's way more rendering here. It's nowhere near as subtle as in the last drawing, and yet she's still pretty. I don't know how he pulled this off, but there's a lot of line work here, and all of it. This one is just explaining the way that the cast shadow falls, but here, again, we wrap around this arch, this muscle of the face, and then we come in here, and then we go. There's part of the cheekbone here. This is there's a bounce light coming in. I mean, there's a bounce light coming in. Boom, and it lights up this slight area. Really interesting. Here we have very, very subtle line work. It's not thick at all. It's not. We have very thick eyelashes to just push out that face, but here we have a bottom plane with just the description of the cast shadow. And I think perhaps if you squint, perhaps this is the reason why this works is because the darkest dark is right here in the eyes. We have this is completely white, and we only have here really and here really where we have some kind of darkness, right? So I think that's probably why it works. It's because the here and here is the darkest area surrounded by this white area, and then here is just descriptive of the facial planes of the face, and then here we have wrapping around. We have the neck wrapping around. And so I think that's why it's working, in spite of the fact that there's so much rendering, is that he does leave this really, really contrasty area here in the face. Here we have another drawing. We have, again, a very high light area, and here the eyes are the darkest of the darkest areas here, and then really subtle, extremely fine lines here on the face, just enough, right? And then here we have these little extra black areas. So I'm wondering if what he did was he came in here with the blackest blacks, right? He just came in here and just popped in all these blacks, and then afterward he just kind of subtly added just enough to kind of tint it just a little bit. And the interesting thing here is that he doesn't follow the muscles of the face like he has in the other ones. He's not following those. This is just straight down. He's not always absolutely consistent in the way he approaches the rendering of something, and yet here he is being consistent with the under not the planes of the nose underneath, and then here really subtle, poop, 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 like 3 lines just for the nostrils. Really great stuff. And then this wraps around, and look at this close. The close, the way he's basically just using the line work to explain the solidity and the roundness of the body here. Just fantastic. Beautiful hands too. Real subtle. Wrapping around like this. The close is so good. Here, much more rendered, even more rendered than before. See, like this is the kind of thing that I would like not even attempt. Like this is just too rendered, and yet still works, still pretty. All of this is wrapping around. But here, see, he goes back to doing the wrapping around, explaining the clarity of the planes of the face here. All of these lines is a subtle explanation of the planes of the face. This is wrapping around. We get this idea of this notion of what the solidity of her face is, right? Again, I would never have attempted to do something like this in fear of overdoing it. Like maybe I would have maybe tried it here in the eyes, and maybe that's about as far as I would go. And then here is we have the neck and front plane of the neck, and then side of the neck. It's a really great piece, beautifully rendered, looks fantastic, and still keeps the beauty of the lady. Okay, so he doesn't just draw women. Obviously, there's some drawings. I couldn't find them. I'll give you a list of books later. But there's some there's a lot of drawings that he's done of men, and the men that he draws, especially the old men and men like this guy who's a little bit more of a chunky guy. They're insane. They're so good. Look at this. Fantastic. This looks like it's pencil and ink. I'm not quite sure, but again, look at how beautiful this face is. Just the blacks. If you just look at the blacks, you would get the entire face. It would work just fine. But then he added all these like little extra, very subtle explanation, like these lines, these midtones. And the midtones, what they do is they explain the planes of the face, the solidity of the face. I sometimes talk about the planes of the head, especially when drawing noses and things like that. When I've talked about the Bridgman thing, and this is how you explain the solidity and the roundness and the three-dimensional aspect of the face. You wrap it around. It's like you're just describing it so well that you're modeling around it. Like you're showing where it turns and how it turns. It's darker on this end, much lighter on this end, adding that dimension to it. Look at this guy's face. Beautiful, beautiful work. Beautiful eyes. What a great expression. Fantastic hand. These hands are so expressive. His face is so expressive. There's so much energy in this drawing. It's just absolutely amazing. Again, another one of these drawings. Again, see, there tends to be mostly a consistency in the way that he draws these lines. I think this is a really lousy reproduction here. I think somebody just kind of put together a lot of different doodads and doohickeys, and then they added her head on here, and it's not a very good. I think it must have been scanned from a clip art, but you could still see this, in spite of the fact that it's a bad reproduction. The line work, how it wraps around and describes the planes of the face here, how she's subtly this explains the subtlety of the nose under here, And if you squint, really what you're seeing is her eyes pop, the brows pop, and then the nose here and the mouth here pop, mostly because of how dark and the contrasting the contrast between these areas compared to this white area, this area of light. Whoa, this is really tiny. But again, you can even at this tiny, it's like squinting. You can see that he's got that subtle line work here, and then this wraps around. This shows wrapping around. So a lot of the line work that he uses, especially on women, is wrapping around, like in a circular motion to add to that softness. And it's very, very subtle. I wanted to find as many different types of faces that he does, because he does a lot of different types of faces. And again, like I said, his men are actually really quite well drawn, like very expressive, they have a lot of character. But look, the lighting, the line work that he puts on these faces is extremely subtle, extremely light lines. And I think that seems to be the key, especially in something like this, where you want to describe the planes, but they have to be really light lines on the face, and they have to be accurately explaining the planes of the face, which is extremely difficult if you do not know them. So it's really important to learn the planes of the face, so that you're able to light them in an intelligent, descriptive way, and then use it subtly. And look how gorgeous this face is. Well, all three of them are beautiful because of how unique and they are. They look like real people, real ladies, and very, very, very. They're all very pretty in their own way. And then even this lady here, there's something so beautiful about this drawing of this woman. I just, it's just, he's just too good, man. Like, he's just too good. More faces, beautiful face. Look at this guy's face. So both of them have a lot of lines. Like, all these people have a lot of lines on their face. Like, all of them explaining, all the line work is very characteristic and explanatory of the facial planes of the face. And you can't get away with doing that if you do not know what you're doing. But at the same time, it's like this would be something that I would be utterly lost in doing. Like, I wouldn't even know where to start. But here's the interesting thing here is that he's painting. So having had some experience in painting, I know that I would want to come in with white paint and put in a little bit of white right here, and a little bit right there, and right here with the planes of the eyes. Put in a little bit of highlight there, because as the light hits that edge here, pop, make it pop. I would put a line up here in these areas here. But right there, maybe here on the top of the lips would be a little bit of white. Right here, these two planes meet, and then right where those two planes meet, there would be light. If you notice, like, and this is the thing that gets me, is that he did that, but in reverse. So, like, when you're inking, you got to leave space there for the white to pop. He did, and it works so well. Like, there would need to be so much planning to be able to do this drawing. He'd really need to know where to leave the areas white and where to just add some of the rendering. He was so good. He was so good. Like, I wouldn't even know how to approach it unless you were sitting there planning it with a pencil and just roughing it out, making sure that every line is accounted for. It would take me forever to, like, just try to solve some of this stuff. And he's got a ton of people all over this thing in doing that. Like it's all explained. Like the line work is explaining it. There's the lights and the way that highlights are popping. It's amazing. And her face, such a beautiful, interesting face here. Very sad eyes, long nose, really long chin, tiny mouth, right? And then yet, look, and she by far has far less line work, but that didn't stop him from putting line work all over her face and leaving these areas of light. And while still explaining the roundness of her face and the planes of the head and the planes of the eyes and the muscles around the eyes. Beautiful work. Beautiful work. And he does these kind of like larger pictures, and they are just amazing. Here's another one. The way that he works these lost edges is really, really great. Too bad we can't really zoom in too much on this, but there's some really subtle line work in here. Very, very, very subtle line work. Very thin, really thin work. But again, like with this guy, you could see all the planes of the face and what direction things are going. This is far more crosshatchy than a lot of the work that I've seen him do. Look at her face. Beautiful. But all of these things are showing direction of the heads, planes of the heads, just and subtle line work, just enough so that it's you get a mid-tone feel. It's a really beautiful one. I just like a lot of the times where he does this kind of sketchy looking feel, and then we have this real sketchy kind of close and leaving a lot of white, like a lot of white. And then we've got this really subtle, it's not as sketchy, like everything else is really sketchy, right? Like just sketchy lines, loose, free lines. And then when you get to like the faces, it just becomes very, very tight, very controlled, very fine line work. Great. It's beautiful stuff. This one's great. Look at the expression on this guy's face. Look at her expression. Look at this face pose. Looking like that. How difficult is that? This is a really difficult pose. Look at the way that the line work goes and wraps around this guy's bald head. The subtlety of this line work coming in here, wrapping around these planes of the face, the muscles of the face here, the way they crunch up. Here's the eye sockets are really, really clearly defined. The subtlety of the wrapping of the values over his eyelids. The direction of this mid-tone here, the shadows, the cast shadow. And then we've got this coming down here. This guy's great looking face, really chiseled. And again, the line work coming in and across. I think I wish this was a better render so we could really take a look at how beautiful it is. It was tough to find really good, solid, highly rendered, or reproductions, high resolution reproductions of his work online. It's actually really quite tricky. We started off with some good ones like this one over here, but once you start getting bigger, it's a little trickier. So that leads me to where can you find better reproductions of his work? Books, maybe books to study from. So books like this book here is something that you can get pretty much anywhere where like a craft store. This is a clip art book. I'll link to these kinds of clip art books in the link for this video. But we've got a ton of Gibson art here. Beautiful faces, and these are meant to be used as clip art. But I obviously don't use it as clip art. I use it as study material. And again, these they have the men, and I love these guys over here. These guys are great. And they're beautifully, beautifully drawn. And the line work, like this is the reason why you have Gibson artwork is really just to look at how subtle and beautiful you could do pen and ink work, and do very beautifully rendered work. Here's another book that I'm going to link to, the Gibson Girls and Her America. We've got like full-on illustrations here that he's done. Again, beautiful, beautiful pen and ink. If you're looking for anyone like somebody to study, to do great ink work, this is the guy. And so you want books like this where you're going to get plenty of reference to look at, to see how it can be done, and strategies and tactics for you to use for when you want to do beautiful pen and ink, dip pen style rendering work. It's just amazing. But don't forget that it's not the line work. It's not the rendering. It's the knowledge and solidity and the anatomy and the construction and the draftsmanship that makes it good. The line work is the explanatory. It's the method by which you explain the knowledge of draftsmanship that you've got. If you do not have that knowledge, you will fail miserably, rendering lines that don't make any sense for no good reason, putting lines where lines don't belong just because you think that lines belong there because you don't know what the heck you're doing. So be aware that there's draftsmanship involved. There's real knowledge involved when you're doing something rendered like something like Charles Dana Gibson. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been useful, and I will talk to you next time. All right, bye.